So this is the first step where we have add cookie basic and JWT authentication, and this is the project and already completed. Now because this topic requires an understanding of the general flow of this application, so I will explain it like this. This is the first page that the user will see. In this he will have to enter user ID and password. This is for the administrative user. If the user is of administrative privileges, then his login ID and password, they are stored in a JSON file located on the server. We have to hard code this here because the requirement of our client was that the administrator will create the login IDs of the bidders. So what we did was that to simplify the whole process, we decided in this project that the JSON file containing the credentials of the admin should be placed in the website, and later on provide a GUI to the administrator so that he can change the contents of the JSON file on the basis of certain web API. So for this tutorial, this JSON file will serve as the user ID and password for the administrator, and this is what is going to occur, that this administrator will send a basic authentication request to the server first. In fact, for other users also the same type of request is going to come, but I'll not involve that right now. So what I'm saying is that the first request that will go to the server will be on basic authentication, and if this request is now coming from a browser or coming from a C# client, because you can have different clients. You can have a browser client, you can have a C# client, desktop client, or Java client, or Android client, or whatever. Now when this request comes from the browser, we have to use cookie based authentication for security purposes, because JWT authentication is not recommended for the requests coming from the browser. You can read the Stack Flow discussions on that, and I have followed the same technique, and in this project I will ensure that when a request comes from the browser, the authentication will be done through the cookie based system. However, if a request is coming from other clients like Android phone or C# desktop or WPF applications, in that case the request to your the authentication on your server will be on the basis of a JWT token, and this client will be required to send a JWT token to the server with each request. So what this means is that this server is going to compulsorily follow this basic for everybody, but it will have to shift to cookie based if the request is coming from the browser, and will use JWT if the request is coming from a client. So this is the whole point of this tutorial, and for this I have taken time to explain how this switching is actually done. And in this tutorial I will also add these two web API auth token. This token will be tested through a curl request of this type, in which the administrator user ID and password, this is what I have kept in the server side JSON file. You will see in a moment. This curl request will be used to test this basic authentication. The typical response will be an access token that will be coming from there, and this curl is a client, so it will be using JWT authentication, and in that case we will send a authorization bearer JWT token. This same token will be sent. I will show it in practice as I do it for you in a moment, and the response will be this. So this is what we are going to test, so you will understand the basic flow of this whole story. Let's see it practically so that things become more clear. This is the project that we have just begun, And in this we have a program.cs file and a utility folder that contains basic authentication handler class and a common web API mapper. This will map your two web APIs. So first of all, let me open it one by one, and in the root folder we have an index file hello auction that gives some instructions about how to use this API, and this file is actually going to mean that we are going to have a look at the basic APIs exposed by this today's raw tutorial. So let's click to this one. This is the program.cs file, and as you can see that we will have to add these NuGet packages. All these are not required today, but we'll add them. In fact, I'll say you will add them so that they can be used in the coming days. So first of all, this is a development environment, set it to production later. Basic scheme name, a constant, and a deferred. Deferred means that we will decide in a few steps later what is the actual scheme to be used, because the caller could be from a web application, from a browser, or from a client. So as usual, you have an add authentication, and in this case the default scheme has been set to some deferred name. This deferred name is defined above. Give any name deferred to, whatever name you want. Basically we want to put it in some placeholder name, and default challenge scheme is again a placeholder. This will be replaced in a few steps later. And to this we have chained the scheme for basic authentication, and we have chained a scheme for cookie authentication. And after this, now these cookie authentication etc., you can go through all the tutorials. And we have also chained the JWT based bearer. So the choice will be made according to the type of sender. So to summarize so far, you have a authentication, then a scheme for basic, because basic will be used in any case. It will be coming whether from the browser side or client side, or from administrator, or from anybody. So this will be there, then cookie will be there, and this bearer. So there will be a choice between cookie and bearer that I have to explain. And here I have also added some policies. These policies the policies are added later. This policy scheme is the one that will actually be responsible for setting the actual authorization scheme. So you can see options.forward default selector, which means that we read the authorization header. If the header contains bearer, there is a bearer header, that means that a JWT client is there. So the scheme will be set as JWT. If it contains basic header, then the scheme will be set as basic, and if these are not there, then the scheme will be your cookie based scheme. Honestly speaking, I do not understand most of the things written here. All I have is a vague idea of what is actually happening. Here we are basically making a choice. In fact, if we spend a day or two, then we can understand, but it doesn't matter for a simple application developer. So here, this is what is actually roughly happening. And after this, I have added a policy for the role, the authentication that will require for only for administrators, only for bidders, and for either. I've given it a name admin, bidder, or either. And after this, we have this build, use static files, authentication, authorization, and there is a map group. This might be new for you. Here, before I explain this map group, I'll say require authorization policy either, which means that APIs listed here, they will all be accessible either to bidder or to admin. And before I move to this part, here this is a log message for the type of environment, and fallback file means that the index.html file will be the one that will be served, because I will not be using Razor pages. So that is why there is a fallback a basic file called index.html, the same file that you saw a few seconds back. So now I have to explain two things. First about this story, and secondly about this class basic auth handler that we have added for basic authentication. So let us come to basic auth handler. Double click. This is again a boilerplate authentication handler. Is the base class for this. A logger through dependency injection. You can read it all later on. Handle authenticate async is the main function. Here we check out if authorization header is present. If basic is present, then we extract user ID and password. And they are available in user ID and password, and we check the role. This role is another function that we have added towards the end. It actually reads our user.json file that I was talking about. This file, it contains user and password. So these are hard coded for the moment, and on the basis of if the caller is admin, the role is admin, otherwise we will later on complete this. I will in fact complete it and put it there. I didn't want to make things complex at this stage. So this will be from database check, and the role for admin or your bidder, which I have not shown here, will be set here, and on the basis of that a claim will be created and a success message is sent. And if this succeeds, then your web API, now the API that I'm going to show. Now here let us come to the program.cs file. This is the part that I'm talking. This one, map group, means that it will allow me to put all the APIs that start with /API in one place. So this basically groups all the API. I don't have to repeat /API everywhere. And this is map common API is a static function that I have added in this class called common web API mapper, and this is the structure of this: route, group builder, map common API, and map get /auth. This means that it will be /API/auth check login status and set JWT cookie token. So these are the two APIs that we have added today. And check login status, if authorization succeeds, then it will tell whether the user is admin, and it will send its JSON. And it is the set JWT cookie. This is the one that will be the first function that will be called when a client or anybody sends this basic header, and sign in will take place for cookie authentication also, and JWT token will also be verified and sent. So if the authentication will be cookie based, then a cookie will automatically be created, and otherwise JWT token will be sent. So it will serve both purposes, although for a client this will not be of any meaning, for a browser this will not be of any meaning, but we have done both of them because we need to support both the things. So now let's run and test whether these APIs are actually being called. You will have to obviously make a lot of sense yourself. These things are a bit involved, difficult to explain also. So this is the page that opens that I was telling, and now it's time to test both the API. First of all, let us test this with the curl. I'll copy this and open the command prompt, and let us paste this. And when you paste it, it sends the header, the basic header for admin at 123, and when you hit enter, it sends you the access token, and this token we can copy for the second request. The second request is this one, copy it, and let me show you what happened in the first request. You received this access token and is admin. This is the is admin, and this is the access token. And now let us paste the second story. We will send the bearer token. I am removing this part because here I will have to paste this, and here I will paste, and I will hit enter. And what I should see now is this is admin equal to true. Hit enter. URL is not recognized. Let me check it. I might have made some mistake here. Yes, I think the mistake is I didn't write curl here. So CU. So how do I get it here? Okay, I'll do it fresh again. I will bring it from here, get curl and copy and paste and bring the token from there and copy it and remove this part, and now paste it here. So now the thing should work. Is admin is true. This is what was the objective of this tutorial. You can go through this as a download. It is very important. So this is how it's you will have to make sense out of it. I'll close it right now. Thank you.